Hello and welcome to my channel, Hooray, I Divorced a Narcissist. I'm your host, Heather Ray, and at the beginning of my videos I always just want to say that this isn't about, oh hooray, I kicked him to the curb, yay, It's more like, hooray, there's life after this, and hooray, I'm ready to start it, and I'm here to help you along. So what we're doing today is talking about the 7 different types of narcissistic abuse. Now, in my last videos, we talked about the characteristics of a narcissist. And there's 46 of them. And at its core, I think it's just important to understand that these people have no empathy. They have no care, and it's really hard. It's really hard to grasp that this person, had no care for you, and no care for, your children. And those wounds that they conduct themselves in life, they came from childhood. They were not my fault. I had my own wounds from childhood that led me to pair up with someone who was narcissistic, because I'm, very codependent. I'm working through all that. And it's a long road, and I just have a lot of information I want to share with everyone. So, we'll start here. Okay. This book, Dana Morningstar, start here, is excellent. She came out with this book, I think, about a year after I'd started watching and listening to Dana, and plus I was on my own, recovery, and you're like a sponge. You just want to soak up all this information because it's just like aha moment after aha moment. Oh my goodness, this is what this is. Yes, it is. It is. And it's so much this across the board that it's like they have their own playbook, They have their own, the way that they conduct themselves in the world is pretty much universal with all narcissists, And it's kind of amazing that there doesn't actually exist a playbook that they're all following, because it's just, well, we'll just get into it right now. So there's 7 types of emotional abuse. I'll read all through them quickly. They are emotional abuse, financial abuse, physical abuse, psychological abuse, sexual abuse, spiritual abuse, and verbal abuse. And I know that myself, it was emotional abuse. It was psychological abuse, verbal abuse. It did get physical. There was physical abuse in there. There was financial abuse. Those are the big ones for me, and everyone is different. But it again, it's just that their lack of empathy, their lack of care. Like they're just operating from a place where they don't have the capacity to have empathy for you. They don't have the capacity to have empathy for their children, or to have, any kind of care. And it's so hard to come to grips with that. It's so hard to come to grips with that. That this person that you loved, 25 years I was, and then to find out or just discover that they didn't have that capacity to have those emotions, the way you feel emotions, they don't have that. And it's really sad. It's really, really, really sad. But, it is what it is. And my goal in life is just to tell everyone about this, and hopefully it will help you. It will help you get out, to get away. Because these relationships are of inevitable harm. Period. You're not going to love him better. You're not going to make him see his his wrong ways. I mean, never. It's just never going to happen. It's just best that you leave. So I'm going to go through some of these and read a little bit about them. So the emotional abuse, which is primarily the type of abuse that I experienced, is any act that attempts to define, diminish, devalue, degrade, and or demean another. Emotional abuse often goes along with verbal abuse. Absolutely. And it damages a person's self-esteem and their self-worth. I know that very well. I know that very, very well. We talked about financial abuse is next, and that's when one person damages or hinders another person's access to employment, money, or credit with the ultimate goal of keeping power and control over the target. So that's very key. That did happen. Then we have physical abuse is any form of intentional and unwanted contact that causes harm. Intentional and unwanted contact that causes harm. Psychological abuse. It says some mental health professionals consider psychological and emotional abuse to be the same thing. I would mostly say that. Dana does go on to say, however, many people, myself included, that would be Dana, who have experienced both, consider emotional and psychological abuse to be different. And then she gives examples in the book. This is just an excellent book, I just have to say. Sexual abuse is any sort of sexual contact where consent was either not given or not freely given due to real or perceived pressure, fear, or intimidation, or if the target was not of sound mind, legal age, or under the influence of drugs or alcohol. Unfortunately, it's just tragic. I'm going to a spiritual abuse. Is gaining power and control over a person through the use of their spiritual or religious belief system. See that a lot in the news, and it's awful. And then we have verbal abuse. Okay, verbal abuse is abuse that surrounds using or not using spoken language in order to get and keep power and control over someone. So again, it's power and control. It's power and control. That is the narcissist's ultimate goal, is to gain power and control. Like I said, these wounds were committed in childhood. Okay? And there is just nothing that any of us can do to make that better for them. That has to come from themselves. And unfortunately, with these types of personality disorders, it's not likely that they're ever going to admit it, recognize it, or try to change it. They are all about not changing and blaming you when, you're sitting there and you kind of expect them to change, expect them to grow up, expect them to, be the dad, be the solid, a solid parent in the house. And it's devastating when that doesn't happen. It's devastating. And it's devastating to finally understand why that you can't get through to this person, that they don't see reality as, reality for most people exists, So, again, the types of narcissistic abuse are emotional, financial, physical, psychological, sexual, spiritual, and verbal abuse. I just want to make sure that you know all of those, because narcissistic abuse, it all is narcissistic abuse at its core. It's all narcissistic abuse. It comes from a person that does not have any care for you. And that's devastating to understand and to come to grips with. And I understand that. I really, truly do. And I'm glad that you're here. I'm glad that you can learn about these things. I know how it felt when I first started learning about these things. It's like you're happy because I'm not crazy. This is truly happening to me, and it truly happens to many, many, many other people. And that's why like support groups are just so important. And when I'm serious, when I found Dana, I was like, oh, there are lots of people that go through this. I'm not alone. I'm not crazy. I'm not crazy. What I'm going through is real, and other people get it. I get it now. I get it, and I just want to share it with you. So again, this is Who Ray? I Divorced a Narcissist. I'm your host, Heather Ray. If you like this, please subscribe, and until next time, peace.